Today we're talking DLC. Again. For the better part of a decade, fighting game developers have been releasing new characters post-launch to support fighting games way after they release. We're seeing this happen even in games that are starting to become noticeably old, with Dragon Ball FighterZ getting a new character release in April of this year, 4 years after what I and presumably many others thought was its last characters, and 8 years after its release. And of course there was also the recent announcement of a new DLC character for BlazBlue Central Fiction. Pretty crazy stuff. In the past, I made a video talking about a handful of DLC characters that were, let's just say, a little good when they came out, but the thing about this topic is that there's so many instances of this happening, it's hard to only talk about 6 examples and feel satisfied. Thus, we're jumping back in to look at some of the most busted DLC releases in the fighting game sphere. But I want to address something from the first video. That video received a lot of comments mentioning 2 characters that many feel deserved at least a shout. Those 2 names were shouted so loud that I feel inclined to talk about one of them, because I have no way to record footage of the other. Look, it's been a long time. My brain can hardly even process the fact that Smash for the 3DS and Wii U is over a decade old, but I will never, ever forget the uproar caused by her. Bayonetta, the final DLC character for Smash 4, released alongside Corrin. The final 3 DLC characters this game got were all pretty cracked, but everything Bayonetta did pretty much made her the ideal character to win during the game's competitive heyday. Ladder combos were a big part of Smash 4 throughout its lifespan. Part of the reason characters like Zero Suit Samus, Mario, and Meta Knight at one point were considered high or top tier was because of their ability to combo continuous up airs and juggle the opponent towards the top of the screen and then kill with their up special, putting you in danger of losing a stock very early, especially on stages with platforms. Bayonetta was like that concept taken to its literal extreme. Even the pre-release video presentation announcing her was hyping up her ability to combo, and yeah, combo she can. This character's primary strength lies in her ability to combo together her up special Witch Twist and the aerial version of her side special Afterburner Kick. Side special in the air had 2 variations, one that travels horizontally upwards and one that travels vertically downward, and both could be chained into her absurd up special. Chaining these together would allow her to carry the opponent to the top of the stage, and ideally she would just kill them with an up air or an up special at that point. It could happen to anyone, at basically any percent, and it did not take long for players to learn these combos. You were seeing them in bracket basically as soon as she came out. She had so many different combo starters like her side special as well as her down and up tilt, and her up special itself, which is for frame startup by the way. Even if she couldn't secure the kill off of one combo, she was still racking up a ton of damage. This is by far the most infamous thing about the character, but it really can't be overstated how big of a strength it actually is. Her combos weren't completely one-sided, as proper use of DI and SDI, which by the way in this context is directional influence and not drive impact, threw me off a bit, would potentially allow you to minimize the damage, but she could also alter the timing of her up and side special chains to catch the direction you were trying to influence in. Believe it or not though, the combo game was not the only thing fueling the perception that she was the best character in the game. Her neutral was quite good. She had a large double jump and her advancing specials made her very slippery and hard to pin down despite her below average airspeed. Even if Bayo wasn't near you, she could still build up your percent. Holding down a button during her normals and all her specials besides down special will fire bullets, which deal small amounts of damage, so even while whiffing buttons, she was still a threat. Her recovery was among the best in the game thanks to that large double jump, along with Witch Twist being a really dumb move for recovering. Bayonetta can perform Witch Twist twice, once for each jump, plus it's highly active and hard to contest. Bayonetta's down special is Witch Time. It's a counter and it's the best one in the game. Instead of just doing a counter attack like most other counters, Witch Time slows the opponent down, which is basically a free full charge smash attack, especially on characters who had already taken lots of damage, since the time slow lasts longer the higher your percent is. Defensively, in addition to all the Smash 4 fixings, she also has access to Bat Within, which activates if she's attacked early on during her rolls, air dodges, and sidesteps, as well as during the recovery for Witch Time, and will teleport her in the direction she was moving, potentially allowing her to escape disadvantage state. Needless to say, post-February 2016, Bayonetta was everywhere. So many players picked her up and many saw great success with her. A character who can threaten kills so early was an easy sell. That was a strength that gelled well with Smash 4's very defensive design, and Bayonetta took full advantage of it. And when you combine that with her involvement in some of the most infamous tournament moments from the game's final years, Not hard to see why this character ended up becoming so hated by the community, as her and Cloud pretty much became public enemies number 1 and 2. Now look, a lot of this is ancient history. This game's time in the limelight ended around a decade ago, and I'll admit I didn't actually own Bayonetta myself when I was following Smash 4, but it was impossible not to hear about this character after her release. She was so widespread and Bayo players were so successful with her. I remember some regions debating on banning her, although I don't believe this ever went anywhere on a national level. Recently at Supernova 2025, which usually runs brackets for every Smash game, Bayonetta was banned in the rules for Smash 4, a ban I'm sure a lot of people were happy to see. The game's final real patch literally only featured nerfs for Bayonetta to tone her combos down. This was after a patch from 2 months prior that also had a ton of Bayo nerfs, and even after all that, she was still firmly considered the best. Post-Ultimate, Bayonetta still remains a very popular pick. Super Smash Con 2023's Smash 4 bracket had 4 Bayonettas in the top 8. Pretty crazy. Now, about that other Smash character people were suggesting, maybe another time. Now, Bayonetta is a character released 10 years ago in a game that's also a decade old and hasn't seen a ton of play since its successor released, but broken DLC characters are by no means a lost art. This is the most recent character covered in this video, and she's been rampaging through the meta, putting people to sleep on a level that even the strongest allergy medicines can't fathom. February 5th, 2025, the day Street Fighter players were introduced to CYKES' second guest character, Mai. You don't need to be a top player to know how despised Mai is in SF6. She's universally considered a contender for the game's best character, and she's probably the most represented character in top-level play for going on a year. If you watch any SF6 tournament, be it a regional, a local, a CPT event, or even one of the big tour climaxes like Capcom Cup, you are resigning yourself to watching Mai, and there's a big reason why. EX Fan is God. The way Mai's projectile, colloquially referred to as fan by most people, works is that when uncharged, they can be nullified by hitting them with attacks. However, they lose this property if Mai charges them, and on top of that, charged fans will also bounce off the opponent and fall upon making contact with them. The bouncing effect is particularly strong because it keeps the opponent locked down in block stun for a very long time, longer than most other things in the game. Now obviously charged fans are a bit of a risk to just throw out, although if you watch enough SF6 you'll definitely see more than a few instances of Mai players getting away with charged fans they really shouldn't have, but she is very vulnerable to jumps or drive impacts if she just tosses them out. It's 32 frame startup for a fully charged fan. EX Fan completely omits this interplay because it basically takes every positive property introduced to the fan by charging it and removes the negatives. They bounce just like the normal charged fan, but unlike those, EX Fan is 12 frames. This move is insane in a way that words find difficulty illustrating. Outside of a select few matchups, Mai has complete control of a match once she tosses this thing out. It offers so many different ways to mix the opponent. She has multiple ways to force high-low or strike-throw shimmy, and even beyond that, the amount of lockdown EX or charged fans provide is just oppressive. Bearing in mind, EX fans cost 1 less bar than a drive rush cancel and can be thrown from an entire screen away. EX Fan is one of the single best moves in the game and allows Mai to represent offense on a level that is far above what a lot of the cast can do. It's not even close. Not only is it extremely strong, but EX Fan also plugs a lot of the holes in her kit. Mai notably lacks a button that is innately plus on block, and her jab pressure is very unremarkable. EX Fan basically means both of these weaknesses don't matter. And what's really lovely is that even if EX Fan were to be removed literally tomorrow, Mai still has so many other strengths that she would still be solid even without this defining part of her kit. Mai has some of the fastest walk speed, forward and back, and her drive rush, while short ranged, is also very fast, giving her some of the best movement in the game and complementing her exceptional normals. Indeed, Mai has one of the most solid sets of SF6 buttons you could ask for. Almost all of her buttons are best in class for their category. Her mediums, her standing heavy punch, her standing heavy kick, she has low forward drive rush and a drive rush overhead. It's insane. Mai's cartwheel special has ridiculous corner carry, so she can take you to the corner off basically any hit. Once she takes you into the corner, she has an easy throw loop. The offense practically plays itself. Her set of supers is maybe the most well-rounded in the entire roster. She genuinely has uses for each one of them. Level 3 is pretty standard and as usual is useful for kills and for burning people out. Her level 2 fucking rockets her across the screen, making it a premier anti-fireball tool, plus it becomes greatly enhanced by what may be her most hated move besides EX Fan. Mai's level 1 is Kaguru no Mai. Get used to seeing it. This is one of the only 6-frame level 1s in the game, but it also has bad horizontal range. Just examining this super on its own, it doesn't really look like anything special, but the key lies in the stocks. Upon finishing the animation, Mai is granted 5 fire stocks, and 1 is consumed upon using any of her specials, as well as level 1 and level 2. In return, each of these attacks receives massive buffs, usually in the form of superior damage, frame advantage, and new properties. Fans, while under the fire stock buff, notably have 2 hits, which allows them to clash with other projectiles, and EX Fan with the buff is always plus on block. EX Fan pressure while Mai has fire stocks fucking obliterates Drive, and her other specials enhancements grant her new combo routes that do significantly more damage than what she has without. It also feeds into her offensive loop, because she can pop another level 1 if she gets a hit and happens to be running low to refresh her stocks and start the whole thing over again. As if it wasn't good enough on offense, fire stocks compounded with the startup speed makes Mai's level 1 arguably the single most rewarding reversal to land in the entire game. A successful wake up with that shit can turn an entire round for her. Fun fact, prior to the Elena patch, the super awarded the stocks on startup rather than after it recovered, so even if this got baited on wake up, you were still in an okay situation as long as the punish didn't kill you. Her kit is almost completely airtight. Add EX Fan to the mix and things just tumble into obscenity. Her optimal game plan is extremely simple and effective, and she's very easy to pick up and play. Maybe everybody didn't immediately catch onto this right away, but eventually it became quite apparent. My usage is at an all-time high. So many players picked her up fairly early on when it started becoming obvious how good she was and how simple she was to play. At this point, seeing lots of Mai in the later stages of SF6 brackets, particularly CPT ones, is as inevitable as seeing someone turn green. The last CPT tournament as of this video being written was EVO Las Vegas, which had 1 Mai in the top 8. Combo Breaker this year had 3 in the top 8, and Xiao Hai, who was one of those 3, won the entire thing. And if you're familiar with Xiao Hai, you know that him playing a character means they are most likely busted. That may not sound like much, but keep in mind this is usually the result of numerous other Mai players being eliminated on the road to top 8, and you can bet she's all over the place in earlier stages of these brackets. The thing about SF6 is that nearly every DLC character they've released is juiced. I could have talked about M. Bison, or Terry, or Ed, or Sagat. All of these characters are cracked, but I think Mai is not only probably the most prominent, but also in my opinion, she feels the most indicative of the common problems people have with 6 as a game. And again, she's also very boring to watch. I don't even think it would take much to make her less obnoxious. In my opinion, just removing the bounce on uncharged EX Fan is already a big step in the right direction, but the nerfs she has actually gotten since her release have been very minor in the grand scheme and haven't really done anything to deter people from playing her and rating her so highly. Kind of a shame, because it's a good choice for a guest, but she ended up being very poorly designed and not particularly interesting in my opinion. Maybe that'll change in August, who knows. With Granblue having like a dozen plus DLC characters when you account for both the original and Rising, it's certainly a choice to narrow down just one to talk about, but I'd like to set my sights on Beatrix, the 4th character of Rising's first DLC season. She was the character of choice for KOJICOCO, who just won EVO, so it's topical. This is a character where describing what actually makes her good is kind of boring because she just does everything. She has an extremely versatile set of special moves. You've got a Fireball and a DP for her first 2 specials. The limited range of her non-EU Fireballs makes them unsuitable for zoning, but EU Fireball does travel that distance, and it's fast to boot. M and H can both be made plus from a distance, which is good for pressure. The DP is also great, and grants her a reliable meterless reversal and combo ender. Accompanying these is 214X, which depending on the version carries utility as a combo ender, extender, and a pressure reset, since every version except L is plus 4 on block. The leap into the air she does is also capable of avoiding attacks, which can be highly rewarding, so there's a lot to gain from using this special. Finally, we have 22X, which is a favorite of mine. During the sliding portion of the animation, Beatrix's hurtbox is lowered tremendously, allowing her to dodge under a ton of things. This is especially useful for 22M because it not only travels like half screen, but on counter hit it causes a launch that allows her to get a full combo. And it's completely safe on block. 22M and 22H allow her to heavily police projectile usage, which makes them one of her most useful tools in many matchups. She can also use 22X as a pseudo frame trap on block because of the fact that it not only goes under projectiles, but also certain buttons. As you can probably surmise, this character has very little trouble getting into your face, where her pressure becomes extremely sticky. She has great up-close brawling buttons with multiple plus on block normals, really good Okia for normal grab, and an untechable command grab on 5U, which is very strong for reasons other than the obvious things that make such a tool so valuable. Let's talk about B's defining mechanic, Delta Clock. This becomes available once her health falls below 30%. When the clock bar is full, landing a hit with the heavy version of any of B's specials will cause the opponent to endure a slowdown effect for a few moments. Delta Clock allows for new combo extensions, which is especially notable mid-screen. Beatrix normally can't get any extensions off her H specials mid-screen, but with Delta Clock she very easily does just that, leading to cash-out damage that a lot of characters can only get in the corner. Considering Delta Clock is unlocked under the same condition you gain access to SSBA, B has some of the strongest comeback potential in the roster. This mechanic also offers significantly enhanced reward off landing her H specials raw, which is very useful when anti-airing with HDP, and gives 22H, which is -8 on block normally, some very nice reward to complement the high risk of throwing it out to catch people walking back. Delta Clock's meter has to be refilled for the effect to happen again after one use, which happens regardless of if that special connects or not, but hitting with her 5U when she's already under the health threshold will replenish it instantly, and it only takes around 6 seconds to refill on its own. 5U will also provide one use of Delta Clock on successful hits if she's above the health condition. So yeah, this character pretty much has all the tools to succeed in this game and has seen very strong results from players like the aforementioned KOJICOCO, as well as my personal favorite Granblue player Gamera, who also picked her up and plays her in addition to a bunch of other characters. Hard not to when she's really just the complete package. She has a fairly strong ranged option with her fireballs, but doesn't sacrifice a good up-close game plan for it. She has an untechable command grab, but doesn't sacrifice anything in terms of mobility like a Ladiva or Vasaraga does. You get the picture. The funny thing is, the Beatrix that currently exists isn't even the best version of the character. Here's a story for you. B was released May 23rd, 2024. Then on June 24th of that same year, the developers dropped a patch that featured balance changes for her and her alone. Up to this point, most of the cast had only gotten very minor changes that were doled out in a patch released in April, while the game's first major balance adjustments came in August 2024. Beatrix was seen as such a problem by the community and the developers that she was singled out for changes 2 months before the game's first big patch. The nerfs in this shotgun patch focused entirely on 2 things. First was 22X, which by all means was busted when she initially dropped. All versions of the move, as well as the follow-up Sapphire Slice, were air unblockable before the June patch. 22M was also changed from being +2 on block to -4, on top of losing a few frames of low profile. They also nerfed the damage on many of her specials. These attacks on her damage output and her general belligerence have been mostly negligible because B is still insanely belligerent and she still does a ton of damage, and even funnier is that B got even more nerfs in a later patch and she's still cracked. Ironically, she actually was banned from some ARC World Tour qualifiers that happened prior to her nerfs like Battle Arena Melbourne 2024 and Super Tournament 2024, but that was only because of the rule regarding DLC characters not being allowed in tournaments for a month after their release. In the last video I made concerning DLC characters, I talked about Bardock, the first DLC character released for Dragon Ball FighterZ and debatably its most impactful. I opted for Bardock in 2024 because of his, let's call it historical significance, as well as him being my favorite character. Thing is, like I've said before, the different eras of this game all have at least one dominant DLC character that defines them, and the comment section overwhelmingly brought up another DLC character in DBFZ that I'd like to talk about today. Android 21 Labcoat. Up until the release of Daima Super Saiyan 4 Goku this year, Labcoat was the final DLC character for Dragon Ball FighterZ, coming out in February 2022 and almost immediately making a splash. I admittedly fell off Dragon Ball FighterZ around the middle of 2020, but even just watching post-Season 3 DBFZ as a spectator, it always stood out to me how much more team variety you saw than in the prior seasons. There were characters in Seasons 1 and 2 who had no right being outside of the point position being run in second or third slot. It was really cool. And then here comes Labcoat, equipped with quite literally every tool you would need to be extraordinary in this game. Skipping neutral in DBFZ is a must. No one wants to deal with that shit. You always have universal stuff like Super Dash plus Assist, but only 21 has access to Savory Slicer. There are two versions of this move, a horizontal and a vertical variant, which are her 236 and 214 specials respectively, and they both have a completely 360 degree covering hitbox, reflect key blasts, and all versions of the ground horizontal slicer were fully safe on block when she released. The horizontal one is very fast too. The light and heavy versions are 13 frames and the medium version is 17. They're vulnerable to head invul attacks, but it's not always easy to be ready for those, especially considering the sheer speed. This was basically the best approach option in the game. It was pretty low risk, and the H version, which had minimal scaling, led to a solo combo that could potentially TOD if resources were spent. 214X has head invul, which is frame 1 for the heavy version, and 214H has the same damage potential that 236H does. Considered the best anti-air in the game when she came out. 21 also has a full screen beam and rapid fire key blast that she can do on the ground and in the air. Obviously Labcoat isn't the only character with key blasts or a beam or a lariat, but having all of them and her lariat being the best one in the game made her neutral really stand out. Her pressure is amazing. Labcoat has 6 lows, which includes both of her lights. Not drawing attention to the fact this character has a standing low, both her 2L and 5L have amazing frame data for buttons of their types. 2H and 3H also both hit low, and her 22X specials are all low-hitting OTG stomps. She has a command overhead on 6H which can be comboed completely solo, no assist or sparking needed, in addition to the universal overhead 6M and 2 command grabs, so there's countless ways she can mix up her strings and open you up. I have been talking about what makes her a good character for a decent amount of time. I have not touched on what made her broken. And DBFZ is ruined. This super was at the forefront of the Labcoat conversation. Costing 1 bar of meter, Photon Pulse is a 21 frame command grab, dealt 21 damage initially, but that was lowered by 100 later. That's great and all, that's not what made it busted. On hits, this command grab gives 21 herself a buff to the damage of her special moves, and also debuffs the enemy, lowering the damage they deal by 21%, on point and as an assist. Obviously, this is insane in its own right. A 21% cut might not sound like that much, but you'd be surprised how big of a difference it can make. This is a game where you need to kill 3 characters to win, so losing damage is a huge setback. You would think that this is balanced by the fact it's a command grab. It of course can't hit airborne opponents, and thus landing it could be tough in a game where people spend so much time in the air. Nope! Labcoat could combo into this command grab, usually by OTGing with 22X and then cancelling into it. During the height of her strength, basically every Labcoat player would prioritize routing into this. There was literally no reason not to, and what's really insane is that Labcoat didn't even need to be on point to do this. Labcoat's DHC level 1 is her other non-command grab super Total Detonation Ball, so she obviously can't DHC straight into a debuff. However, she could actually combo after this super with 22X, which could then go into the command grab. You could also just straight up tag her in during a combo with another character. So there were countless ways to get the debuffs rolling even if Labcoat wasn't on the field. And it was invincible, from frames 4 to 27, so you could also use it to blow through gaps in pressure. Photon Pulse allowed Labcoat to exert control of the match in a way that no character before her really could, and created unique snowball situations that were very hard to get past for whoever's team started getting debuffed first. The super had another adverse effect on matches, which is that it would cause them to take a really long time. Labcoat started becoming extremely prominent after her release. Practically every top DBFZ player was running her, so it wasn't uncommon at all to see matches with Labcoat on both teams, all the way up to top 8. If both players using her managed to get debuffs off on the other players' teams, that would cause games to take a real long time. You look at some of the big brackets that went on during her prime, like Bum's Birthday Bash 2022 and Combo Breaker 2022, which had 6 and 7 players who used Labcoat at any point during their top 8s respectively. It wasn't super uncommon to see the timer go down under 100 seconds. Now to be fair, this is not entirely the fault of Labcoat. DBFZ matches could go on for a very long time before her release, and some of the factors causing this are mechanics that were present the day the game came out, like recoverable health and the generally low risk associated with tagging characters out to recover said health. Labcoat definitely exacerbated this problem though. Eventually in June, the community chose to ban Labcoat 21 at CEO 2022. This ban mostly came as a result of worries that brackets would take too long to run, as well as the community generally agreeing that she just wasn't very fun to fight in her current state. Funnily enough, CEO 2022 also happened to be the last big tournament before Labcoat's first set of nerfs. I assume that was just fortunate timing, but it's downright comedic how fast that patch dropped after CEO. The first patch didn't really stop the Labcoat mania, and she remained extremely prominent for some time after, but she's definitely become a lot less common now due to more patches after the one in June 2022 that continue to nerf her. As for the nerfs themselves, they mostly hammered down on the command grab and savory slice. Today, Labcoat cannot combo into the command grab. In addition, Grounded Savory Slicer is now punishable, and all versions of Savory Slicer, horizontal and vertical, have the Ki Blast property, meaning it can be reflected at any point during blocking it. They also cut the amount of meter she builds literally in half. She still retains her extremely versatile kit and strong mix today, but the loss of her command grab combos and Savory Slicer gaining more counterplay definitely made her less oppressive. Regardless, I think the original pre-nerf version of Labcoat will probably remain one of the biggest and most notable examples of a badly balanced DLC character for a very long time. To end this video off, let's talk about BBTag. With the mixing and matching of characters from 3 other fighting games in this game, there's a ton of DLC. 7 packs in fact, each one containing 1 P4A character, 1 BlazBlue character, and 1 Undernight Inbirth character. We will not be touching any of them. BBTag 2.0 was an expansion pack released a year after the game dropped that added 9 characters. One of these was Adachi, the only Ultimax exclusive character to hail from P4. And yeah, he's really good. Like most of the cast, he has bits and pieces of his original kit reworked for BBTag's different button layout and systems, and he meshes very well with those systems. One of his moves that benefits heavily from his rework is Maziodyne, his Ultimax 5D turned into a special move. It's a large, screen-covering beam that deals multiple hits and has 2 versions. The A version is a very capable zoning tool, while B's slower startup and heaps of active frames gives it a different, more nefarious purpose. B Maziodyne is like the single best move in the game for facilitating active switch nonsense. Almost any time you see Adachi do this move, it's accompanied by an assist call, which is then followed by an active switch. Doing active switches does not cancel out your character's action, so your partner is able to move while Adachi is firing the laser. There's numerous different ways this is messed up. Besides being a free neutral win, it also enables very strong mix. If the opponent ends up in grounded block stun off the beam, it's very easy to set up high-low mix. This mix is enhanced by the fact that whatever your character is doing is obfuscated by the beam itself, and the fact that the beam can't really be push blocked, effectively forcing the opponent to guess. Adachi can set up mix with the beam by himself, though it's definitely much stronger when he has a partner to do it for him. If they get hit, you can carry them to the corner and combo off it, and due to the screen filling size of the beam, it's more than possible to snipe assists and end up getting a conversion on both characters. Air blocking the beam is also an option to avoid the high-low, but then you're still dealing with pressure. This also opens up the potential of getting hit with an air unblockable, although the viability of this depends on the team. Most moves in the game that are unblockable in the air are DPs, and not every character has a standard DP, some have counters. Still, it's always something to consider. Speaking as someone whose first experience with BBTag was fighting against Adachi Yumi, this is one of the most absolute brutal and annoying things to deal with in the entire game, and it makes Adachi a superbly valuable character to have as a partner. Just about every character can make use of this, and characters with assists that can safely cover Adachi during the beam startup make for even better partners. Although he's typically run on point, it helps that he also has some pretty great assists for when he's on standby. The 5P assist has insane horizontal range and provides an easy conversion, while his very slow 6P assist has admittedly slightly inconsistent tracking. The high block stun on these 2 assists makes them very good for extending pressure. Adachi's assists are also great for cross combos, as their long block stun gives his partner ample time to position the opponent between them and Adachi to sandwich the opponent, and that's very important as sandwiching enables constant and oppressive mix during the cross combo duration. And if you can't set up a sandwich, cross combos can still be effective for Adachi teams thanks to Maziodyne and his assists letting the partner set up mix anyway. Adachi's support value is supremely powerful, and it makes him the perfect complement to other strong characters. Some of Adachi's best and most common partners are Yumi, Ruby, and Narukami, and the reason is that all of these characters have good neutral assists that can protect Adachi during beam startup, and they have phenomenal mix that's greatly enhanced by Adachi's beam and assists. King of Ninjas 789, who won the EVO 2026 BYOC BBTag tournament, plays Adachi Yukiko, and even though Yukiko isn't considered particularly great, this team allows her to easily build up fire levels during beam block stun and during cross combos by comboing into Ghastly Wail with Adachi. Since Ghastly Wail's animation on hit is so long, it's both free levels and healing for Yukiko. On his own, Adachi still has a lot going for him. Beam is a lot riskier to set up solo, but it still grants strong mix-ups when he can get it off. He has great all-around buttons. His infamous jump C from Ultimax is here and contributes to his space control talents, and it can hit cross-up, so it does have merits as a way of opening people up. His solo damage output is very impressive, he has a useful set of supers, and he has ways to get good Oki and safe jumps thanks to Ghastly Wail without even needing a partner. He's not bad on his own, far from it, but his biggest strengths definitely come from his ability to support other characters, and he capitalizes on support just as effectively as he gives it. Something about that feels profoundly ironic, but regardless, it's why he's commonly considered one of the best characters in BBTag. For a $25 investment, you can't ask for much more. And there we have it. Some more busted characters, all with a price tag separated from the game itself. I've always wondered why a DLC character being broken tends to rile us up more than a base roster character being that strong. Maybe it's just cause a lot of the time, these characters release fairly late in a game's lifespan when a game has reached a point of decent balance in its cast. I don't know, but it's interesting to think about. There are obviously way more instances of this than I can cover in 2 videos, so let me all know what you think are some of the most notably overpowered DLC characters. I'd like to give a big shout out to ZANE, KOJICOCO, and CYKES, who all helped out on the script for this video. Thank you all for the help, I really do appreciate it. Thank you for watching, have a great night, and take care. Hey everyone, this is the point of the video where I thank all my channel members, all of whom are amazing and beautiful, and I'm going to give all of you a kiss right now. Mwah. Thank you for the support. Thank you to Old Man Han, Cammy the Killer, Jazba, Mortis, Arg Seals, Wormy, Bad Tangerine, Ernesto Flores, Gundog92, Loose Chujin, Raymond ZX200, Nick Toyo, Power Level Asian, Kira the Stowaway, Sonic Frontiers is a good game, Chandarin, Professor Bagel, Slurpee, Sirbot Frank, Isaac the Collector, and Gaming Spends. Thank you all so much for the support. It really does mean so much to me. This was an interesting video. I've been wanting to make a follow-up to that old DLC video from a while back for a decent amount of time now, and it was honestly really fun to work on. I know, like I said, God, there's so many comments in that video that were like, talk about Bayonetta and Steve. Bayonetta was locked when I made the first video, but I like I said, I just didn't have any real footage of her, or I didn't have a way to capture footage of the character, but now I do, so that was fun. The reason I didn't talk about Steve is because, admittedly, I didn't follow competitive Ultimate for that long, and by the time I had stopped following it was way before Steve came out, so I don't really know anything about the character, and I don't know, maybe next time. Again, you know, it's always a next time. Some of the multiple characters in this video actually were suggested in the comment section from the last DLC characters video, so I don't know, maybe next time. Anyway, thank you all again for watching this video. Thank you to all my channel members for the support. It really does mean a lot to me. Thank you to the people who helped out on the script. I appreciate it more than I can possibly express in words. Thank you again, all of you. I love you all. Thank you. Have a great night.